Hi, Rick Clark, fifth generation from Williamsport, Indiana. I am for the soil because if you want healthy humans, you have to have healthy soil. It all starts with the soil.
Welcome, everyone, to For the Soil, a conversation. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii, and joining me, of course, my co-host, Eric Benfelt with Virginia Cooperative Extension Community Viability, and from the Virginia Soil Health Coalition, Mary Sketch Bryant. Welcome, guys.
Good morning, Jeff.
We have a very interesting and intriguing guest for our listeners this week. She is very passionate about agriculture. Watching the documentary on her a little bit earlier today, I was really inspired what she is doing in the state of North Carolina. But Eric, if you would go ahead and do the introduction.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff. We're very pleased to have Clarenda Stanley with us, better known as Farmer C from Liberty, North Carolina, and Green Heffa Farms. Farmer C owns a vertically integrated medicinal herb brand and is also established the first Certified B Corporation. And so it's a real pleasure to have Farmer C with us and would welcome you to give us a little bit more background about your farm and the context for your business, Farmer C. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. And just a little clarification, my farm is the first Black-owned farm to attain a Certified B Corp status, hopefully to inspire other agricultural businesses to pursue, if not the certification, then the standards, the way of doing business, as well as to encourage other women, and especially Black women and other women of color, to also bring their voice to sustainable business because we need it. I did not set out to become a farmer. That was not on my dance card. I did spend a great deal of my formative years in Wilcox County, Alabama, which is known as the Black Belt region. Heavy agricultural culture, lots of Black farmers, but there's also a lot of poverty in Wilcox County where I grew up. And at the time that I graduated, and to my knowledge today, it hasn't changed, we still have segregated school systems. And it definitely was an interesting experience with agriculture. I was taught primarily by my maternal grandparents, as well as my mother, to respect land ownership, because that was something that had been tenuous for many Black families. There have been, we all had the stories within our family of how land had been taken and other challenges and retention. And so I was always taught that it was an asset, and you treat it well. You treat it well because then it will produce better for you. And if it produces better, then you can command more should you sell it at market, or if you're going to utilize it for your family. But I was not encouraged to become a farmer. That was something I would say I was actually discouraged. Know how to grow, but we want you to go to college, get a degree, get a good job. Back then, pensions were a thing. I think they've gone away now. We don't really have pensions. But that is the path that I was told to follow. And I made detours. I made a lot of detours. My trip to where I am now has definitely been an interesting course. But then in 2018, I was legally entangled, shall we say. And my legal entanglement, hold on, I'm a wordsmith here. Okay, so my legal entanglement was having a very extended career transition period. And me trying to optimize our family's financial sustainability, asked my then partner, what is it that you want to do? And in North Carolina, hemp production pilot was online. And so that was the buzzword. It was this miracle plant. It's drought resistant, deer resistant. It's gonna, sequester carbon and do all these things, which it is a fantastic plant. I do grow it. Okay, I do grow it. But anyway, to get started, you needed to have a farm income. There were some challenges in North Carolina. I happened to have farm income because I did inherit a 20-acre tree farm of my family's land in Alabama. So it was a technicality. I became the farmer on technicality. Well, the relationship did not work out, and you keep what appreciates. The man did not, the land did. So I found myself with this beautiful asset, and it's like, hey, what could this be?
I'd like to learn more about your operation there in North Carolina, including the name of your farm. It's called Green Heffa Farm, and I'll spell that for our listeners, Heffa. I presume there's an interesting story behind that.
Well, where I'm from, heifer is the correct spelling of the word. I did not know that Heifer was the actual spelling until I was much older. And heifer was a term that my devout Presbyterian Sunday teaching, apologize every time she says a spicy word, grandmother, who we call Medea, would use if she was upset at a young lady, that heifer. And if she was really mad, if you had really gone above and beyond, then you were a mean heifer. And I always thought it was the cutest thing, being as I knew much spicier language in my teens. So in paying respect and honor to the Black women in agriculture who often get left out of that conversation, even though we've been present and we're integral to the building of the agricultural infrastructure in this country, I wanted to honor her and let her know that I am not a mean heifer. I am a green one, and green representing our commitment to the planet, to being responsible environmental caretakers of this land, as well as economic prosperity, demonstrating that agriculture and entrepreneurship can result in a financially sustainable operation.
And see, building off of that point, I know that a lot of your work now still is about inspiring, educating women, BIPOC women, to get into production and think about land ownership and changing that narrative. What does that look like in the work you do in North Carolina and across the country?
Yeah, so I do speak to women that may be able to relate more to my lived experience, but I speak to everyone. There's this misconception or misperception that if you focus on, let's say, Black women, that's exclusionary, right? You're leaving everyone else out. Even though you can look at any statistic and any research and demonstrate that by the time you support Black women, everybody else has been supported, because Black women typically are the least supported, despite our consistency in defying obstacles and making things happen. And we do that for everyone. So it's been part of who I am. One of the things that really motivated me, however, was prior to starting Green Heffa Farms, my background is in philanthropy. I am a fundraiser by training, a generalist, as a matter of fact. So I've done it all, from annual giving to event planning to principal gift fundraising. And that's going to be your 7-figure gifts, the uber wealthy. And I was working in the environmental space. I've always been involved in things relating to the planet's well-being, regardless of what organization I was working for. When I led development and communications at the region's largest children's emotional health organization, I raised money for there to be a therapeutic garden to help assist the clinicians. When I was a vice president at a university, I, helped ensure that we were able to look at things such as LEED certification for our new construction, established a recycling program that the students were able to then take the proceeds from and use it towards student activities. I always have found a way to do it. And so when I'm in this environmental organization, it's a dream come true. I love the planet. I love people. I love being part of the efforts to ensure that we have a healthy planet for many, many generations. And the rose-colored glasses were torn off my face, literally. It was very eye-opening for me. And I almost allowed that situation to dishearten me and put out my fire, because I realized at very, very high levels, the conversations were not as entailing and as inclusive as I thought they would be. And not only because there was consistent, a repeated situation where entire significant groups were being left out of the conversation. But I also realized that with all of the discussion of earth, you flip those letters around in this heart, right? The heart of caring for the land had been removed, and it was this quantitative scientific discussion. And clearly the data wasn't enough to move people. And for many of us, it's not possible to separate the heart out of the work.
And Farmer C, I think some of our listeners would be more familiar with different business structures like a sole proprietorship or limited liability corporation or a cooperative. And as the first Black-owned farm to achieve certified B Corporation, could you help our listeners as well as us understand why that's important as a business structure?
Sure, let me give my disclaimer, because we like to sue in this country. I am not a business professional, legal professional, lawyer, tax, or any of that. So when I initially started, one thing that I knew, it was that I was not going to necessarily do farming as I saw it being done around me. And here in North Carolina, you definitely have some farms that have value-added products, for example, that are vertically scaled. But by far and large, it's conventional farming. And being from a space where I saw the data, the quantitative information about how degradation of the soil is impacting us on a global scale, as well as impacting the quality of the food, the fuel, the fiber, because we do so much more as farmers than just produce fuel. Food. So for me, I wanted to build my business based on what I wanted Green Heffa Farms to ultimately be. So I made in farming, the uncommon move to opt to establish us as a corporation from the beginning, based on where it is I wanted us to be. And I also was very intentional about building a brand, understanding that a brand is an asset. And we trademark, our brand is trademarked. So we are also, we own that intellectual property. Sole proprietor just means you work for yourself. You get all the reward, but you also take on all the risk. Partnership, of course, is meaning that it's a legal partnership. You both have developed the terms related to that. Most farms are going to be LLCs, limited liability companies, which allows you to have some movement as an individual, but also some of the protections that are afforded to corporations, for example, which we are. So I say, protect yourself. Do the one that makes sense, and it may be start as a sole proprietor and then scale up and change your business structure as you grow.
We're talking today with Clarenda Stanley, better known as Farmer C. She is the Chief Executive Officer of Green Heffa Farms. She is an entrepreneur, a farmer, an herbalist, and also an advocate for ethical business and sustainable living. I want to make sure our listeners are aware of the website greenheffafarms.com, and that's spelled HEFFA, greenheffafarms.com. And C, I hope that you'll stay with us to record another episode. It's been a real pleasure, and we'll continue on and talk a little bit more about soil health.
Absolutely.
We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode with Farmer C. For the Soil, a conversation is made possible with funding support from the National Fish and Wildlife Foundation and the Agua Fund. Other partners include the USDA's Natural Resources Conservation Service, Virginia Cooperative Extension, Virginia State University, Virginia Department of Conservation and Recreation, and partners of the Virginia Soil Health Coalition. Views expressed on this podcast are those of each individual guest. To download a copy of this or any other episode, visit the website forthesoil.org. If you should have a specific question about soil health, call your local extension office, or maybe your local USDA service center, or perhaps your Soil and Water Conservation District office. Music used during today's program was provided courtesy of the Flip Charts, all rights reserved. For the Soil, a conversation is produced by On the Farm Radio in collaboration with Virginia Tech. I'm your host, Jeff Ishii.